Thank you for joining us on the program from the National Assembly. I'm Ignatius Nkwo. Well, this is the first live broadcast of the plenary of the Ninth Senate. Well, from the other paper, the senators are really in for quite a number of works, legislative works. Well, from the other paper, the Senate has scheduled 4 motions for consideration. One of them, in fact, the first motion on the other paper is the motion that seeks to urge federal government to revert to the former tariff, 35% tariff on importation of soap noodles. Well, recently it's said that the federal government reduced it to 10%, and then now the senators are saying that there's need to revert back to 35%. Well, that motion is still ongoing. The consideration of that motion is still ongoing. Senator Jibril Barau, who moved that motion, was particularly worried that the reduction on this tariff will affect the development of local industries. Well, that motion received a number of support from senators. Now, the Senate is also expected to consider a motion on the case of 10 patients who became blind after being injected with a drug in the hospital. Well, we'll now take you straight to the chamber to follow proceedings.
It's not going to work. It will lay off a lot of youth, particularly who are now farmers. This is what really killed textile industry about 10, 20 years ago, when we failed to protect the local production. Today we are having smugglings of textile, all sorts of textile into the country. We laid off a lot of youth from being employed. We beg this particular, we plead with this honorable chamber, this distinguished chamber, that we will take the holistic idea of all the tariffs they have already reviewed through the central bank. I was almost amazed when I heard central bank banning this, banning that, which is not their duty. Increasing tariff, decreasing tariff, the same central bank through executive and finance. The stakeholders must sit down and debate holistically on this to come to a conclusion that will give our populace favorable economic development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Surajuddin Bashiru Ajibola.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, I think the issue is about what should be the focus of the country in terms of the pattern of economic development is what the very important motion has arisen. We want to go by way of outright liberalism, the attendant consequence on the development of our own local economy, in view of the fact that the advanced economy, in terms of production, they have actually advanced with the consequence that they have reduced the cost of production. So the focus of this goes beyond mere talking about the soap building. It talks about how do we ensure that we develop economy. And I will say, with respect, Mr. President, that this Senate is not without ability to guide the executive as to the focus of our economy. Very importantly is the notification of the adverse consequence on our foreign exchange position, particularly when we allow importation of all kinds of things that we may be able to substitute. So I would say that beyond adopting this motion, we need a comprehensive engagement with the executive on the focus of the Nigerian economy, using our interface with the executive and also our power under the Constitution to direct the Nigerian economy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Abdul Fattah Buhari.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleague, Buhari Abdul Fattah Oyono. Mr. President, in supporting this motion, I just have some few observations. When my colleague and my friend Barra was making this presentation, he made mention that the initial increase was from 35 to 10%. And later, after some time, they reduced it, it was reviewed. Mr. President, in most cases, there must be a reason for the review. we need a lot of information. And I remember very well, Mr. President, in this chamber last year, when we were arguing about importation of rice, the argument at that time was that the tariff of the importation of rice should go up. As of today, imported rice are even cheaper than the rice being produced from Kebbi. Because it's even cheaper. So in most cases, when the review comes like that, all what we needed is from this agenda, we don't have what is called a policy statement or what the government should do. What is good for goose is good for the ganja. That the most important thing, what is the policy of the federal government on importation? What is the policy of the federal government on all other things? So that decision being taken will just not look as if we are not a serious nation. Imagine groundnut oil that is being produced in this country is that's what they are using for the soap noodles. And at the end of the day, the local manufacturers are still afraid to compete. I was thinking they should be afraid. If they are getting their own imported very high, we are getting it cheaper, so our own should even be cheaper, and we should be able to make sure that we employ more people. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Senator Oriolowo Aderele Ademi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Adelere Adeyemi Oriolowo, representing Osun West Senatorial District. A lot have been said about this important motion. What I want to say is that from what have been said from both sides, there could be a reason why the policy was reviewed downward. But whatever be the case, I want us to know something, that when a policy is put in place, there should be a timeline through which the policy should be watched and viewed to see its impact on the economy of the country. Somebody has said that probably the imported rice or imported oil is cheaper than the locally made ones. This is obvious and normal, because not immediately you put a policy in place that the effect will be felt immediately. Of course, there will be certain prices or costs that will be borne by the population, because not immediately that you put tariff on the importation of oil palm, that the local production will be geared towards meeting the local demand immediately. There will be a time through which the local producers will do their production. There is always a gestation period. So therefore, much as I would like us to investigate the reason behind the downward review, I want us to take this particular motion very seriously and to work in such a way that we encourage executive to do what is known as policy stability. It is always disincentive to productivity and economic growth whenever we have unstable policy. So not only on all noodles alone, but on all our policies that are geared towards development of our economy, we should try as much as possible to have what is known as economic stability. In supporting this motion, I want us to add in our resolution that we investigate what has led to the downward review of the tariff. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I know. Distinguished colleagues, we still have so many senators who want to speak, but we have also so many other motions to take. So I will take the next 4 people that are listed here. It's okay. I want to give them the opportunity to speak. Senator Christopher Ekpeyon.
Mr. President of the Senate and my dear colleagues, Mr. President, my name is Christopher Stephen Ekpenyang, representing Akwa Ibom Northwest, the man that took over from St. Augustine Akpadi. Mr. President, thank you for giving me the opportunity to also make my observations on this worthy motion that has been ably moved by the distinguished senators. The issue at stake is about whether we should persuade the executive to go back, that is to increase the tariff on soap noodles that is being produced in Nigeria or by our people, or whether we should not. And I've listened attentively to various submissions by my distinguished colleagues. Most of them have spoken within the context of the prayer, and most of them have gone outside the context. But I want to submit, Mr. President, there are so many variables that gives rise for industrial production that we have not taken into cognizance. I hope I'm protected, Mr. President of the Senate. One of such factors, a major factor of production, particularly in industry of this nature, is power. And a distinguished colleague here, I think Senator Otasi, talked about power, importation of generators. When you are producing in Nigeria, power is epileptic. The cost of production will be high, higher than what is produced in those nations that we have talked about that our people are importing. I think the window of opportunity given to others is that people have to import to meet the needs and desires of Nigerians who are in dire needs of these elements. But we have refused. I think we should be holistic.
Point of order. DSP.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise under Order 56-9. If I may read. When a senator is speaking, no senator may converse aloud or make any noise or disturbance to interrupt him. Mr. President, for so long, we've tried to allow our colleagues to make the right call. But for some time, that has not been done.
DSP, your point of order is noted. But let me also say that the Chief Whip, you are to ensure that the Senate listens. Senator Chris Ekpenyang, please round up. You have just a minute to round up.
Is that we were looking at the disability, whether we should increase or urge the federal government or the executive that is handling the variations on tariff, whether we should vary or we should not vary. But I say there are so many conditions antecedent to our acceptance of the prayer here, Mr. President. Much as this is a very beautiful motion that has been moved and ably supported by various speakers here, I want to pray that we should have asked the promoter of this motion to provide us with adequate information for us to understand why we should accept the increase in tariff before we take a decision, so that we will not be mocked by the executive that is implementing the the policy. That is my submission.
Thank you very much. Senator Bikule Mwosu, and that will be the last one. Then we round up for the next 2 or 3 motions to take stage.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ibikunle Amosun, I represent the good people of Ogun Central. Mr. President, let me join my other colleagues in supporting this motion. But let me say that reducing tariffs from 35 back to 10 may not necessarily mean policy somersault. Usually when tariffs are being set, they will have timelines. But let me speak more on the benefits and the importance and the advantages that backing up tariffs can do for our economy and for us as a nation. Mr. President, excuse me. One, this can build our capacity. Of course, it can generate the much needed employment. If you look at our textile industry, we can even look at our grains, rice, wheat, maize. You will discover that if our manufacturers, our farmers are not protected, then our nation will be turned to a dumping ground. I happen to know that when we protect our industries, our entrepreneurs, our industrialists, with increased tariff like this, it will help the quality. But in doing that, we must look at the timeline. We did not know. Maybe when they are increasing the thing to when they downgrade it to 10, they give them maybe a 5-year period to pick up. Now what we should do, in advising the federal government, we need to know, and we will tell them, maybe they will extend that increase in tariff that they've given to them. Maybe they can extend again to maybe 35 or maybe even 30 to encourage them so that they can master it. Until when we begin to support our own, we will not get there. Indeed, at some point in time, the United States, they were subsidizing their wheat farmers to the extent that when there was glut, they were even throwing them into the ocean just to keep them in business. And I think this is a good motion, but I have an additional prayer, and that will be that we have a holistic review of all of this import substitution.
When we come to the prayers then, thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. I know there are so many distinguished senators who have indicated interest that they want to speak and contribute on this. But we have run out of time because we have to take the other motions. So we are going to the prayers now. The prayers, appeal, let me read the prayer first. Appeal to the federal government to revert to 35% import duty appeal to the federal government to revert to 35% import duty on the importation of soap noodles to save the industry in particular and Nigerian economy in general. Amendment? Who said amendment? Senator Bikule Mwosu.
Thank you, Mr. President. Because it was a sole prayer, that's why I was trying to bring this amendment in. The amendment would be that we should, either we will have maybe a committee.
If you have an additional prayer, you can bring that after we finished with this amendment. Amendment to this singular prayer. Amendment, Senator Yusuf A. Yusuf.
Thank you, Mr. President. My amendment is simple. You see, the economics of import duty is very complicated and it looks speculative, but the amendment I will put here is instead of revert, it should be review.
Any seconder? Senator Babaketa.
Ahmed Babaketa, Katsina North, arise to second.
Go to your seat.
Senator Babaketa, go back to your seat. Any seconder? Any seconder to that amendment? Senator Basi Albert.
Thank you, my able Senate President. I rise to second the amendment ably proposed and moved by Senator Yusuf that the prayers should read, appeal to government to review the import duty on soap noodles, on the importation of soap noodles to save the industry in particular and Nigerian economy in general. I so second, Mr. President.
Those in favor that the prayer, no, we have to vote on it first before you can amend it. There is already an amendment. Those in favor of the prayer as amended, say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. For additional prayer, Senator Gabriel Suswam.
Yeah, Mr. President, I am Senator Gabriel Suswam, representing Benue Northeast. Mr. President, when you say appeal to the government, we are part of
Distinguished Senator Gabriel Suswam, we have already taken a decision on that, so we are asking for additional prayer.
What I'm saying is that this prayer is too amorphous. When you say
that prayer has already been adopted by the Senate. So you can only come through substantive motion to negate it. There is nothing you can do at the moment. If you have additional prayer, we take it. If you don't.
The additional prayer would be that this House do direct the Minister of Finance that has the responsibility of deciding on import duties and the central bank to provide this House, this Senate, with additional information as regards the reason why they had to engage in this policy somersault on this import duty as regards these soap noodles.
Any Sekwanda? Sekwanda, Michael Nachi.
I start to second what my brother, Senator Suswan, has said, because it will go further to give us the stand to know why. After this,
you just second it, and that's all. We don't. Those in favor of the additional prayer moved by Senator Gabriel Suswam and seconded by Senator Mike Enachi, say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The nays have it, no doubt. Additional prayer, Senator Teslim Kolawole following.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished colleague, highly respected colleagues. Teslim Kolawole, Oyo Central. It goes like this, Mr. President. Appeal to government to holistically. Can I go on, sir?
Order.
Minority Whip, we are waiting for you.
Thank you, sir. Appeal to government to holistically embark on an urgent review of import duty of other imported manufacturing items with a view of protecting our local industries.
Seconder, Senator Bashiru Ajibola.
Mr. President, distinguished colleague, I'm Senator Dr. Ajibola Bashiru, also Central. I second the motion as moved by Senator Teslim Folani, and I think...
No, it's okay. If you second it, it's all right. Those in favor of the additional prayer moved by Senator Teslim Kolawole Forarin, say aye. Aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Jibrin Isa Checho.
Mr. President, sir, as a rider to this motion, I think there is a need for a comprehensive review of the import substitution strategy of the federal government. As an additional prayer.
Any seconder? Any seconder? Senator Adede.
Adedayo, Adeyeye. I'd like to second the motion. The prayer moved by Senator Issa Jibrin. I so second.
Well, we are still going to put the question, even though they look similar. The amendment, the additional prayer is similar to what the former Senate leader, but I will still put the question. Those in favor of the additional prayer moved by Senator Issa Jibrin, say aye. I will put the question again. No. I'll play the devil's advocate. No. Just hold on. Senator Issa Jibrin, I'll play the devil's advocate. Maybe I'll advise that we stand down that additional prayer, or we merge the two with that of Senator Kolawole Teslim Folarin, so that the two are merged together. Because it doesn't look like we are safe. The weather is a little bit turbulent. So are you okay with that?
I'm very okay with that, to the extent that the results will be the same. Because, I mean, my suggestion is a complete review of the import substitution strategy. And I know what I mean by that in terms of the goals that we may have to achieve as a result of that.
The target is the same. I'm sure our colleagues will be generous this time around. Those in favor of the additional prayer moved by Senator Issa Jibrin, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Point of order, Senator Ndume. Any additional prayer? Senator Rosoko.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Rosoko, Cross River North. The additional prayer is refer the motion to the appropriate committee when set up to investigate the review as well as the prayers that were made by Senator Folarin and report back to the Senate within 2 weeks.
Any seconder? Seconder? Senator Adiola Olamileko.
Thank you, Mr. President. Very distinguished colleague, Adiola Solomon Olamileko, representing Lagos West. I rise to second the motion as moved by Senator Rose Oko. I so second.
Those in favor of the additional prayer by Senator Rose Oko, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Any additional prayer? Let me congratulate all of us for debating and contributing and intervening on this very important motion. As a nation, we cannot but protect and promote our industrial journey. Many countries, even those that are so developed today, protected their local industries before they reach where they are. In Nigeria, we cannot but do the same. I believe that the fiscal and monetary policies must favor industrialization. And therefore, this motion is apt and germane. And when our standing committees are reconstituted, the appropriate committee will take up the assignment to engage with the Federal Ministry of Finance and other stakeholders to ensure that our industries are given all the support that they require for them to grow and provide the much needed employment opportunities for our teaming youth particularly. Thank you very much. Senate Leader.
Mr. President, my highly respected colleagues, the second order of the day is a motion standing in the name of Senator Aishatu Dahiru Ahmed and 7 others on the Avastin injection, the case of 10 Kaduna patients who went blind after administration of the injection. Mr. President, you will recall that yesterday, 2nd July 2019, the Senate, by Order 42, Subparagraph 2 of our standing order, approved that this motion be moved on the next legislative day. which is today. Accordingly, Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Aishatu Dahiru Ahmed to move the motion. I so move, Mr. President.
Any seconder to the motion? No, the move. Who is the move of motion? Senator Aishatu. Senator Aishatu Dahiru Ahmed, please. Move your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, respected distinguished colleagues. It's on, sir. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, distinguished, respected senators, colleagues. It's not working?
It's working.
It's working.
It's working.
Raise your volume.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, distinguished senators, colleagues. I am Aisha Dahiru Ahmed Binani, senator representing Adamawa Central. Mr. President, there are co-sponsors of these motions, standing in the names of Senator Gabriel T. Suswan, Benue East, Senator Aliu Sabi Abdullah in Niger North, Senator Ubasani Kaduna Central, Senator Ishaku Elisha Cliff Adama North, Senator Abdullah Adamu Nasaras West, Senator Yaro Binos Dauda Adama Asad, Senator Oloriegbe Yahaya Ibrahim Kwara Central. Mr. President, distinguished senators, colleagues, the motion is on Avastin, the case of 10 Kaduna patients who went blind after administration of Avastin injection. The Senate alarmed that the use of Avastin injection meant for the treatment of cancer at the National Eye Center Kaduna for eye treatment. Note that on 28 May 2019, 10 patients visited the National Eye Center Kaduna unaided for poor eyesight due to cataract and other minor ailments, but to the shock of the patients and the general public at large, they went blind after taking an eye injection at the center. This was reported in the Nation newspaper of 20th and 29th June 2019 and Daily Trust newspaper of 23rd June 2019. Note that the New York Times of 31st August 2011 had earlier reported that the same Avastin injection, which was originally meant for cancer treatment, had caused blindness when applied for eye treatment. Aware that investigation confirmed that the 10 patients went blind after they were given Russian-made Avastin injection, resulting to the patients being affected in both eyes, while the remaining 6 victims lost one eye each. Also aware that after the unfortunate incident, NAFDAC waded in and took the drugs for a test, but so far the result is still awaited. Note that if this can happen in a government medical facility like the National Eye Center Kaduna, then it should be a matter of urgent national interest to look into the supplies of drugs in this country with emphasis on what our hospitals administer, to whom, preservation and expiration. Worried that the victims were still under the care of the hospital some victims were still under the care of the hospital as at 2nd July 2019, 30 days after the incident, with little or no improvement. The harrowing experience of the victims are disheartening and a cause of worry by all and sundry. Therefore, mechanism must be put in place to checkmate the anomalies in our health sector with the aim of correcting them and avoiding future reoccurrence.
accordingly resolved to 1. Set up an ad hoc committee to carry out a holistic investigation on the use of Avastin injection for eye treatment leading to the blindness of the 10 Nigerians. Urge NAFDAC to make public the result of their tests on the said injection and suspend the use of Avastin injection by hospital in Nigeria for eye treatment. That mandate the relevant authorities to compensate the victims and bring to book the practitioners found wanting. Thank you. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Gabriel Suswan, you are a co-sponsor and you raise your hand.
Mr. President, once again, I'm Senator Gabriel Suswan, Benue Northeast. Mr. President, we agree that the eye is the light of the body. If all senators close their eyes, this place will become dark, your body becomes dark. This clearly, just as the initial motion shows, the total failure of some of our agencies who have responsibility to carry out their work with regards to responsibilities given to them. Mr. President, in the past, NAFDAC, which has responsibility to make sure that drugs coming into this country are properly scrutinized, have suddenly fallen silent. And you have a situation where people ordinary with eye problem, beyond the age of 50, all of us here have eye problem. Then you go to hospital for treatment, then you walk out of that hospital blind. This is very serious, Mr. President, and this Senate must take this motion very seriously. Because if we allow this, it will continue to happen. You know that chloroquine sometimes was banned because of the side effect it used to have on patients. Now we have a drug that is making Nigerians blind. Who knows whether this is deliberate? Because, as she said, discussing with her yesterday, this same drug was banned in the United States of America. And it is this same drug that is being imported here. It means that NAFDAC is not doing its job. And we must hold NAFDAC squarely responsible for what is happening to Nigerians. Mr. President, as a co-sponsor of this motion, I want to urge honorable colleagues to seriously support this motion and also support the prayer 2, where NAFDAC will be urged to quickly supply to this Senate the investigation and tests carried out as referred to this drug. Mr. President, I so urge.
Senator Matthew Orogide.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I'm Senator Matthew Orogide. I represent Edo South. Mr. President, in supporting this motion, on my side is premised really on some of the prayers that have been listed. But I think it is important for us to add a professional plank to this discussion. What has happened is most unfortunate at the Eye Center in Kaduna. But we have always seen a lot of the happenings in our country replete with repetition. And when they happened, you expect that they will not occur again. Perhaps I have to just remind us that all pharmaceutical products that are used in this country, or in any country, they undergo what we call post-market surveillance, PMS. That a drug is used for one purpose does not mean it cannot be used for another purpose. What has been expressed here is a reminder of some products that have been used, pharmaceutical products that have been used before. To go down memory lane, a drug like amantadine was used for A2 viral infection. We later found out it was used for Parkinson's disease or Parkinsonism. A drug like cyproheptadine, which we commonly call Preactin, is an antihistaminic.
But we have found out that it is an appetite stimulant. So if you have a product like Avastin, that is an anti-neoplastic or anti-cancer drug, and you find out too that this drug too can be used to improve sight, there's nothing that is really wrong. But at the point where PMS or post-market surveillance suggests that the indication or what was intended for that drug now has become a harmful effect, that drug usually is removed from the market. I remember in those days, statistically speaking, 1982, I was still practicing in the teaching hospital. When we found out that a drug like saccharin was written off. It was a sweetening agent, but we found out that it could cause cancer. It was removed from the market. A drug like methylphenidate sodium, which is analgesic, later it was found out that this drug could cause blood dyscrasias, paresthesia, that is sleep relapse. They were written off the market. Today you don't find analgesic anywhere. The same thing Avastin that has been brought into our market, whether it is from Russia, whether it's from anywhere. So long as those effects that were not intended, now you find out that they are happening, you withdraw them from the market. I think this point must be made clear. It is still going to happen that pharmaceutical products that will be used in our market, either as over-the-counter products or ethical products, they are still going to be used. But the point to make is that all regulatory agencies must be acting in tandem with other international regulatory agencies so that we are abreast of what is going on. Look at it. The report that was given in 2011 that Avastin could cause blindness should have been enough to inform our own health agencies that this drug now has begun to give contraindications that, of course, we exclude them from the shelf. So I believe what we should do, it's unfortunate, like I said, that this thing happened. Those persons too that have suffered these effects, compensation is there, it is made for, yes, they are going to be compensated, but they have lost their sight. But I just believe that even up to now that NAFDAC has not been able to give a report is to express the same problem that we have in our country. So, Mr. President, my very distinguished colleagues, the authorities in the hospital, working in tandem with NAFDAC and other regulatory agencies, including Pharmacists Council of Nigeria, and other agencies that regulate our pharmaceutical products in this country, they must be called to order to be in tandem. At all times, analyses are carried out on products. It is always ongoing. In fact, it is surprising to know that ordinary paracetamol is still undergoing PMS. And by the time we find out that the intention of being an analgesic, a painkiller, we find out it can no longer be used because of one untoward effect, of course, exclusive from the shelf. So Avastin is not different. So I'm supporting this motion because there are still so many other pharmaceutical products that are on our shelf that can still create problems like this. NAFDAC must live up to its responsibilities. They must have short time to carry out tests to verify the indication of these drugs, indication of what the drug is used for. And then number two, when we get to additional prayers, our own regulatory agencies must be working in tandem swiftly with other international regulatory agencies to avert incidences like this in future. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
The Deputy Minority Whip. The Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Aliu Sabi Abdullahi, I represent Niger North. Let me align myself to the earlier contribution by my colleagues. But most importantly, I think the last speaker who is talking from a very professional point of view. And like he said, we must add some professional dimension to the subject. Now, my worry, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, is NAFDAC as the legally constituted authority to look after our welfare with respect to drug, has a procedure where drugs are registered. And my understanding is, in registering any drug, there are so many information that whoever is registering that drug is supposed to supply. And we know also, from a professional point of view, before any drug is allowed to be used for a particular purpose, it must have gone through the stage of experimentation and even clinical trial. All of this, we informed the type of information that will be placed side by side with the marketing of that particular drug. Within this context, I'm worried that 33 days after, from what we are told here in this particular motion, NAFDAC is yet to make a pronouncement or to even come out to say something. I think that is worrisome, and we must take that to bear when we come to give our motions. The other point I would like to make, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, is to say that every drug, we all know it to be poisonous. And expertise is expected to play a key role in how you use that particular drug. And I think that is the point distinguished Senator Matthew Urugide was trying to make earlier. Now, there is liability because the doctors who were using this, to my mind, they knew they were taking a very huge risk. Every drug is designed for a particular purpose. And if you decide to experiment it with another thing, you should know that you are taking a very huge risk. And I think the risk being taken with the eyes of these Nigerians, I think is a risk too much. There must be liability. And when we come to consider the, what did they call it, the prayers, I think there will be need for us to look at some additional prayers. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Ahmed Baba Keita. It's not here. Senator Ibrahim Olorgbe.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Ibrahim Yahya Olori Egbe. I represent the people of Kwara Central Senatorial District. Distinguished colleagues, I want to come on the side of supporting the motion, but also from professional angle, and to provide further detailed information that will guide these chambers. Mr. President, let me start to say, just this morning, I learned from my distinguished colleague, Senator Aisha, about the publication. I read through. And reading through, I got certain information. Avastin is a trade name. The actual chemical ingredient of that drug is bevacizumab B. It's an antibody. When we say antibody, it means it is something that is against certain things in the body. It's an IgG1, as we call it chemically. Yes, just like Senator Orogide said, when it was initially found, it was for treatment as an antibody to treat cancer, particularly colorectal cancer. What we may call cancer is the large intestine. However, as part of the research of that particular chemical content, there was some offline thing. Because the way it works is that it blocks certain what we call vascular endothelial growth factor. That's more technical, but it's about blocking something in the blood. And for that, it was licensed to be used for certain things in the eyes. So with due respect, my colleagues, it isn't that the doctors that use it, they were using it for what it's not meant for. It is used to treat certain eye conditions, particularly what we call diabetic retinopathy, which is when diabetes affect the eye. It's used to treat retinal vein occlusion. That's a condition when certain things in the eye, what we call the lens of the eyes, when it is blocking. And particularly something we call age-related macular degeneration. It is also used to treat that. So unlike what is stated in the newspaper, that the patient has cataract and so on, no. The doctors in that interview said the patient do have eye conditions that are treatable, are amenable to that particular thing. Secondly, the doctors also said they have been using it in that particular hospital, because it's a national eye center, to treat such degenerative conditions. Now they said, what happened in this situation? They are finding out. And just like Dr. Rigby there, what could have happened maybe the particular batch of the ones they have, or certain adverse reactions that are unexpected happen to those patients. 3, they said some of the patients in that particular paper also have recovered their eyesight, but some did not. So with all this background, sir, I support the motion that there is a need for further investigation to be able to know what were the actual circumstances in that particular hospital. But it isn't that the drug was not meant to be used for treatment of the conditions they were used for. The second thing is that I support their prayer that NAFDAC should provide us the report, but that is also part of the investigation, because whatever committee we set up, we have to interface both with the treating physicians, the patient, as well as the regulatory body. Of course, it depends on the findings of such committees. They will be able to know, because as health practitioners, sometimes
the Distinguished, you can round up.
So, Mr. President, I rise to support the motion and to say that this distinguished chamber should approve all the prayers as stated. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Abdullah Adamu.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Abdullah Adamu, and I represent Nasarawa West. I rise, Mr. President, to lend my voice of support to the motion under consideration. My attention was drawn to this very, very unfortunate, pathetic development in Kaduna Eye Center, where our fellow countrymen and women became victims of what one, as a layman, will call carelessness or professional negligence. I say this, Mr. President, because the issue we are debating in regard to this failure from one of our health institutions is not the first of its type. The issue of misuse of drugs, misapplication of drugs, using expired drugs is not the first time it's coming to this hollow chamber. But what makes this one particularly bad is the fact that it has taken so many Nigerians as victims, where in one stroke, 10 Nigerians have fallen victims by losing their eyes. As distinguished Suswan did say, yes, compensation, but whatever compensation we are able as a country to pay to these victims, one thing you can never do is restore their eyes. One of the very fundamental responsibilities of every government is the preservation of life and property. The eye is one of the most important organs for a human being, or even a lower animal. By the time you lose your sight, a little more than 50% of your capabilities are lost. So we have a duty, as those distinguished senators who spoke before me have already indicated. There is something wrong with the performance responsibilities, statutory responsibilities of agencies in government. It is to be noted that this Avastin drug was used in the United States of America. There were reported victims that
had this drug administered on them in the United States of America, where it was used for the treatment of cancer. The current DG qualified and practiced for God knows how many years in the United States of America before taking charge here. There is no way you have an institution which is charged with one responsibility, one of many responsibilities, which is no drug is allowed to be in circulation in any of our health institutions without that drug being put to the relevant tests to determine its suitability for usage for the purpose for which it is being applied. One would wonder, who is responsible? What institution is responsible for determination as to whether or not this Avastin, as being used in our hospitals, is really potent enough for the use for which it is put? Earlier on, we had victims in a hospital in Kano. The matter was raised, but it didn't have the opportunity of coming to the hollow chamber like this one is. So a lot of these incidences are happening around the country. Maybe it did not attract the attention of relevant citizens in the country who are in a position to take the kind of steps that our distinguished colleague has taken to bring this to our attention. NAFDAC is so busy that they even go, if you go through some of these committees we sit on, you see complaints, you hear complaints where they leave their primary responsibility and go to other spheres. For instance, the quarantine services. Go and see the kind of reports at our entry reports, or at the exits. They are very capable of interfering with the daily activities of these quarantine services, for instance, an example, but is failing to see to its responsibilities in regard to what drug is used in our hospitals. I think this is a very, very serious setback, and when we get to the prayers, we need to look at it as seriously as we can and see that the prayers we do approve do address these issues very, very squarely. I do lend my voice and support for this motion.
Senator Chumaroke Ogbonia Enamani.
My name is Chimaroke Namani. I represent Enugu East Senatorial Zone. I thank the Senate President for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this debate. On behalf of my constituents, I will empathize and sympathize with the patients involved and their families. The National Eye Center in Kaduna is the topmost eye institution, not just in Nigeria, but in West Africa, with major intake from Nigeria and referrals from neighboring countries. We are dealing essentially with two newspaper reports talking about patients coming in with cataract and minor ailments receiving eye injections and ending up with various levels of blindness. Two newspaper reports. I crave your indulgence to please provide somewhat background to what could be happening. Take the eye organ as a tennis ball anchored by muscles. Tennis ball anchored by muscles. To inject into the eye, a doctor will be trying to achieve paralysis of those muscles or for anesthetic reasons. A doctor can also inject into that tennis ball, the eye, so as to convey some medications, including antibiotics. So you have 10 patients presenting with cataract, minor eye ailments in a top referral institution in West Africa. are receiving anti-cancer chemotherapy agents. It does not add up. However, just like any other injection, chloroquine in the buttock, there are adverse issues that could affect such medication. One, it could be just this patient does not react well to this drug. We don't have a reason. It's called idiosyncratic. It could be allergic, in which case the drug is a foreign antigen. You have antigen-antibody reaction. It could be a good drug, mislabeled, and therefore injected for the wrong reason. Or clearly, it could be a fake drug. In this case, we have National Eye Center. The Federal Ministry of Health has a department in charge of hospitals. There is the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria. There's also Nursing and Midwifery Council of Nigeria and NAFDAC. These various agencies independently have to do their own investigations, review medical records, interview personnel, both doctors and nurses and patients. And then NAFDAC will now undertake a chemical laboratory analysis of the drug. These various agencies have inbuilt mechanisms to remedy the situation and prevent the occurrence. Before I sit down, I must salute the National Eye Hospital in Kaduna for the role they have played over many decades handling eye care, especially for indigent patients, both within the country and outside. So I salute the Eye Institute and I salute their staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Akpambasi Albert.
Thank you, Mr. President. My distinguished and respected colleagues, Senator Albert Bassi, representing the good people of Akwa Ibom Northeast. Mr. President, let me thank my sister, Senator Aisha, for bringing this motion, and also thank my respected colleagues for all their submissions. But Mr. President, let me also, like my leader has said, Senator Namani, on behalf of the good people of Akwa Ibom Northeast, I empathize with the affected victims and also as well sympathize with their families. Mr. President, having listened to Senator Dr. Namani, having listened to my leader, Senator Matthew Orungide, Mr. President, I believe that I have nothing absolutely to add.
You can sit down.
Than to say,
Senator Albert, you can sit down if you have nothing new to add.
I want to answer. I have nothing to add than to say that may this Senate take the benefit of their experiences in this committee, Mr. President, and then let us wait for the outcome of their investigation. I believe that should be the only prayer, and that this investigation should be a public hearing where all the stakeholders in the health sector will give an opportunity to say what they do know, and also for the committee to recommend appropriate compensation for this victim. I thank you, Mr. President, for this opportunity, and I thank my distinguished colleagues for supporting this. Thank you, Mr. President, and God bless you.
Thank you. Senator Abomoro.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am Abomoro, representing the good people of Benue South. Mr. President, I rise to support this motion sponsored by distinguished senators who have shown serious concern for the victims, the Kaduna Eye Center. Mr. President, I think this is a very, very sad commentary on our health service delivery. And it's very, very unfortunate that since 2001, when the New York Times had published and advised or warned that this vaccine was not meant for eye treatment, that NAFDAC, our regulatory agency, still turned a blind eye and allowed this drug to be administered on the eye. Mr. President, it's very, very unfortunate that this is happening in an eye center that is supposed to be a first-generation eye center in Nigeria and West Africa, where professionals are supposed to be involved. But having said that, Mr. President, I want to support this motion on the premise that a thorough investigation will be carried out and appropriate punishment be meted out to the people involved. And I believe that this will serve as a deterrent to other organizations and agencies that are responsible for the life of our people. Mr. President, apart from urging NAFDAC to quickly release the report of their investigation into this matter, I think NAFDAC has a lot of questions to answer. And until that is done, we will not be serving the purpose of being the watchdog of the Nigerian people. Mr. President, I so submit.
Senator Nicholas Tofomo.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my name is Nicholas Tofuomo. I'm representing the good people of Ondo South. I'm supporting this motion, but we have to get one thing clear. If we are asking NAFDAC that has certified this injection to now give us a report, I think it's a joke. My suggestion is that we should ask an independent body to give us a report on this injection, because if a drug has been certified, an injection has been certified by NAFDAC, and it has gone wrong, and asking NAFDAC again to give us a report, and they've not been able to come up with this report, I think we should be able to ask an independent body to give us, to look into this injection and give us a report so that at least we can weigh it and take a decision from it. Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Kone Tim Ekeyakenyi.
Your Excellency, the President of the Senate, distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Akon Eyakenyi. Akon Eyakenyi. I rise to support my sister, Senator Aishatu, for this great motion that she brought to the floor. It's unfortunate that this has happened because, just like other distinguished senators have said, the eye is an important part of the body. Without the eye, there is nothing you can really do for yourself. And so for this number of Nigerians, our own children, to be affected this way, it gives a great concern. And so I want to support the prayers, the three prayers, but most importantly, that NAFDAC should immediately withdraw the drugs from circulation. We've only been told about these 10 that have been affected. We don't know other hospitals, other places, the same medication would have been administered, and Nigerians are being affected without being reported. So first, let the drug be withdrawn, and a committee, I support that a committee be set up to investigate, and then the patients that are so affected should be adequately compensated. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Banana.
Well, Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues, I have looked at this motion carefully, and it appears it's a very, very straightforward motion. One, we are aware with the way the system works. NAFDAC has a whole-fledged department that they call pharmacovigilance. The idea is to trace the use of drugs and medicaments and see their side effect or their efficiency in taking care of the disease for which they are meant for. Now, if you look at this thing, it has two sides. One is the allegation that it was as a result of this drug, the administration of this drug, that led to what was described in the motion. So if we are to investigate, first is to possibly invite, now that committees have not been set up, to possibly invite NAFDAC to appear before the leader of the Senate or any of the principal officers to at least brief them on what they have done so far in respect of the tests that they have taken based on the content of the motion. But the second one is that it has to do with administration.